Okay, so for this week's discussion board, the examples for each one of the biases that I have, starting with confirmation bias, was when I was convinced that going in a partnership with fellow moving companies, essentially like our competitors, was a mistake. And, it was a reasonable belief, because, you are in competition with each other, technically, and everything. But after it was proven that, hey, this is like profitable and this is actually a good thing, I still did not believe it and was very suspicious of it. And, it actually took me a long time to come around, but thankfully, my dad was in charge of, the partnerships at that time, and so we continued with it, and then ultimately I saw that, oh, my belief was wrong, that, you know, everything was fine with partnering with competition. Representativeness bias would be when I had a bad experience with a guy that had a previous record, like, minor offenses or whatever, and I, from then on, was like, no, like, anyone that doesn't have a clean, like, sheet, like, no. If they have any kind of criminal record in any way, like, they're not going to be any good. They're going to steal, they're going to threaten, they're going to be violent, and I just, out of literally that one employee that was, like, essentially, like, the one bad apple, I was totally against anybody that, didn't have a completely clean record, which also turned out to be incorrect, because, as I found out, it actually turned out that most, well, maybe not most, but a lot of people in the moving business do have some sort of something on their record, but that doesn't mean that they're going to do something wrong on the job. That doesn't mean that, like, that makes them like a terrible person or they can't be trusted or an employee. So yet again, I was wrong. The next one, illusion of control. So I had this happen when my father always went out on the moves with us, and even though he was the one, like, he would do, like, moving and, like, orchestrate the move and things like that, I got into this, like, spiff with him, and he was like, well, if you think it's so easy, like, then you can just go out on the move and I'll stay here. And I was like, I can oversee this move just fine, like, it's not that hard, like, the men know what they're doing anyway, and all of that kind of stuff. And it didn't turn out very well. I had to call my father because one of the movers was essentially, like, out of control. He had his spouse show up on the move, which was not allowed, and she was, like, just hanging out in the car on the customer's property and would not leave. And then when I confronted him about it, he was, like, all in my face and, like, oh, I'm gonna walk off the move, and just thought, like, oh, he's calling the shots. And so that would be my illusion of control, because I thought that I could totally handle it. I didn't think it was a big deal. I'd been on moves countless times with my dad, and, like, overseeing it and things like that. I didn't think that I really needed any additional backup, but obviously I did. And then lastly, escalating commitment, I would say, was when we had this repeat customer. And each time that she would book a move, she would give us a $100 tip at the end, and then turn around and do a chargeback on her card. Like deem it as, like, fraud. Like, I don't know anything about, like, this move or this charge. So after getting burned twice, she went, and tried to book with us again, and I was, like, totally against it, like, no, we're not going to do this, and everything. And then my mom and dad were like, no, like, this is cool, this is fine. and like she agreed like to pay in cash and all of this. So then we end up like renting the truck, and she lived really far out, and really like investing in the move, right? So then we get there, and now we're like halfway through the move, and it's the same old thing. Like now she's starting to get an attitude, now she's starting to make claims. Now all of a sudden it's, I don't have cash, I have nowhere to get cash, I have, I'm going to pay with a debit card, like, blah, blah, blah. And I knew about halfway through the move, like, you got to just walk away. You got to just cut your ties, and you got to go. But I went against that. I was like, no, we're already invested. Like, no, which was clearly foolish to do, because for the third time, took the card number, did all of that. Only I didn't charge her for a tip that time because I knew it'd just be a chargeback. But yeah, and so it was a whole mess, and I should have just done the right thing and just said, okay, this is a loss. I was right. My initial thought, whatever. But instead, I continued with it, saw the move through, only to end up burned again. So those are my examples of the different biases, like personal experience that I've had where I have done each one of these things. So